Yet every time we send somebody to Washington, they turn around and go upside down for us. This guy from Arizona is a joke. And how are you going to, if you're elected, how are you going to be able to take and make a change in that atmosphere in Washington, D.C.?
You know, it's a very important question. I don't know how many of y'all travel frequently, but when we were redoing airport security and creating the transportation security, or actually upgrading, because we already had it, but it wasn't called that, there was a big fight about to do it through private contractors or do it publicly. Two Republicans, Kay Bailey Hutchison and the gentleman from Arizona, which you referred to, sided with the Democrats and brought us those 60,000 employees who are now public employees. Under the fig leaf that they couldn't unionize, but the first thing the Democrats did when they won control is allow TSA to unionize. So I think it's very important to try to get people, you know, on the right page in terms of being a conservative. You know, voting against Obamacare and the Obama stimulus program for a Republican isn't a big lift. I voted against the Bush stimulus program. Not many people remember $168 billion in May of '08. George Bush had a stimulus program. Only about 15 Republicans voted against it. I was one of them. In July of '08, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac bailout, $200 billion. I voted no on that. And then in November of '08, the whopper of them all, the Wall Street bailout. Vice President Cheney called me personally, and I'm a big Cheney fan, because anybody the liberal media hates has to be a pretty good guy. And he asked me to vote for it, and I said, you know, Mr. Vice President, I'm an old-fashioned American. I believe that if the President of the United States asks an American citizen to do something, there's only one answer, and that answer is yes. And you are as good as the President in this instance. But Mr. Vice President, you put me in a really unusual position. I have to say no, because that bailout is not the right thing. And so I think we do need to scrub our candidates better as a party. But the second thing that I really strongly believe is you got to have something like the Contract with America. And I saw how it worked, how Newt Gingrich got 10 items and he got very moderate Northeastern Republicans on the same page. And I've been promoting something for 5 years now called the American Renewal Project. And it has things like national defense, it has things like energy independence, it has things like welfare reform on it. And there are issues that not only would unite the Republicans, but it would bring in independent swing voters and voters who stayed at home. One of the problems Romney had is he didn't convince his home team that he was a conservative. And I've heard different numbers, but I've heard as high as 2 million evangelical Christians stayed at home rather than vote for him. And I don't think that was the right decision. But, you know, we've got to have something that gets our base excited. And, yes, sir?
New leadership.
Okay, I didn't know if I had to make that. Okay, Jack, I'm delighted to see you here. A couple of reasons. One, my comments refer to what Jack said and what Mr. Conkey said. I spoke to your son the other day, and I said, listen, when you see your dad, I want you to give him a message, because everyone I talk to agree with this. And I said, no, I'm not saying that your dad is included in this group, but I said, the Republicans in Washington seem to be too stupid to explain their positions and too cowardly to defend them. What's wrong with the Republicans in Washington?
Let me answer that question, but while I do it, this is Chris and Al. Chris, have you passed around the sign-up sheet?
I did.
If you're interested in being on our email, just, you know, sign this. And if you are interested in, you know, might support our candidacy, put a star by your name. We will be calling. And if you, if we're not your number one, we'll be your number two, because it's real important for us to talk. Now let me say this, in terms of being a Republican in Washington, D.C., or almost anywhere, there is an amount of being shell-shocked. After Sandy Hook, and by the way, I have an A+ rating with the NRA. I have the highest rating of anyone running for this seat, an A+. I'm very proud of it. So Sandy Hook happens, media jumps on me, you would have thought we pulled the trigger. Government shutdown, clearly the fall of the Republicans according to the media. They never reported that we actually passed a continuing resolution that did everything but fund Obamacare, rejected by the Senate. We did another one that said we would delay Obamacare a year, rejected by the Senate. We did a third one that said it would fund Obamacare, but Congress would be included, rejected by the Senate. Now they never cover that. They never said, dang, Harry Reid is really taking a hard extremist line. And I think what happens to us, and I've actually heard this expression, perhaps you have too, that Republicans don't explain things because they're afraid people don't understand, won't understand, and Democrats don't explain things because they're afraid people will. And I go to a lot of schools, and I go to a lot of hostile media environments like Chris Matthews, and I've done MSNBC, and I'm telling you, you know when you're going in there, you're being a punching bag. I go on the Bill Maher show. I don't know if any of y'all have watched that. But, you know, you got to go out there and show up. And I'm telling you, when you do the Bill Maher show, which I have several times, and by the way, he's a very committed atheist, so, but you get an honorarium, $500, I send it to church. And I always have a special smile in the back of my head when I think, you don't know where this money's going. But, you know, they pound us all the time. And I think a lot of Republicans just say, look, give up, just don't do it. And I absolutely think we have to engage. And that really ties me into just my closing comment. Very, very important. This is an active, this is a vibrant room. I'm very, very impressed with what's going on in Cherokee County. Sitting on an airplane with a woman from Hinesville, Georgia. Hinesville, Georgia is not exactly a Republican area. It's in my district. The lady next to me, she says, I know who you are. You're Jack Kingston. You're one of the ones we vote for. I was very excited. It's going to be a good plane ride. And I said, well, you know, tell me who we is. And she said, well, it's my church. I said, well, what do you mean by this? She said, well, you know that early voting? Early voting, what our church does is we get the vans and we drive around our neighborhoods and we get people to vote. The people in my block, they know if I don't get them to the poll on Monday, I'm coming back Tuesday. And if I don't get them there Tuesday, I'm coming back Wednesday. She said, by the time 3 weeks of early voting is up, I've gotten everybody in my neighborhood to vote. And the people in the other vans have done the same thing. And I said, that's great. She said, in fact, I got one of the ballots with me. Would you like to see it? I said, yeah. Well, she pulls out the ballot. Starts with Barack Obama and goes downhill from there. Jack Kingston's name is not on that list. Now, here's what was so amazing to me. That we as conservatives will say, well, what a dummy. The lady doesn't even know she's done vote for me. But with pride telling me the story. But in reality, she's kicking our tail. The Democrat Party is now a party of community activists. They've learned how to get their side to the polls, and that's the fundamental part of all politics. And that's what you and I have to be. We've got to make sure our folks are registered to vote, and our folks are harassed as much as possible to get out to vote. Because if not, we're not going to pick up the White House in 2016. This Senate seat could be in play. Lots of seats around the state could be in play. And we lose that majority, it's going to be very, very difficult to get back. So thank you very much for letting me be with you, and thank you for everything that y'all do to be such a major part of the Republican movement in the entire state of Georgia. Thanks.
Thanks, Jack.